What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, Week 13 to be exact. The gang is all back together post-Thanksgiving food comas, ready to roll as we get ready for, really the crunch time of NFL season as we dive in Week 13, get an extra week this year. But we're still not anywhere near close to being done and finished with all this. And to help me break it all down, as always, is my co-host. We'll start with Coach Brandon Lupian. You can find Coach Lupian at Portland 76er. Coach Lupian, happy belated Thanksgiving. Hope everything was well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, and just glad to be here. And thank you guys. And I hope you guys had just as good of a Thanksgiving as I did.
Indeed.
Amen. And there is, of course, my other co-host, the other leg in this tripod. It is, of course, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir? Happy belated Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Likewise to you and to anybody who's listening to this tonight. Here we are. It's December 1st. Who'd have thought? We're already in December. We talked about how long the season was going to be this year, and all of a sudden there's only 6 games left. So it's going to be wild to the end for some of these teams.
It's crazy, and we go back to whatever that date was, early September, and there were some crazy upsets or situations that happened. And now I don't think a single team, or at least a single fan, can really remember what happened week 1. Everyone overreacts to week 1. We're now into week 13. And, you have to have a short memory in the NFL. We are going to start on, of course, Thursday Night Football. We're recording the 1st of December, as Raider Jim talked about, Wednesday. So tomorrow night's Thursday night game, one of the few times you're going to be talking about a Thursday night game. And we are not talking about a short week, as we are talking about the Dallas Cowboys heading to the New Orleans Saints. Of course, both of these teams played last Thursday on Thanksgiving, so they have a full week to get ready. Kind of one of the nice things to do this, nice ways to do this. It's actually the second time the Cowboys have been on Thursday Night Football, but not on a short week, as obviously they opened the season against Tampa Bay. That was definitely not a short week. But we will start, of course, with Coach Lupian's projections. The line on this game for Thursday Night Football, the Cowboys are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 47.5. Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts?
Both teams after Thanksgiving going into this kind of a mini bye, like those days in between, allowing both teams to get rested up and patch up some of those injuries. No more speaking than the Saints. I mean, geez, they had a whole starting lineup collectively on the defense and on the offensive side against the Bills, and the results spoke for itself. And right now there's still a little bit of question marks about moving forward with the quarterback situation. Taysom Hill didn't get no run the last week and a half because he's suffering from a foot injury, and now he's taking first team snaps. So things are looking on the up and up somewhat, but I mean, you got to give your hats off to Trevor Siemian. He could only do so much with the given amount of talent surrounding him. Alvin Kamara is supposed to be back, and hopefully, our best defensive player so far this year has been Marcus Davenport, and he's looking like the Marcus Davenport of years past, where he plays great one game and then he's out the following week with an injury, and hopefully he's back and kind of like healthy to make some disruptions at the backfield. So, 4.5 for the Cowboys isn't surprising, especially where the Saints have been playing in the Dome, which has kind of been like lackluster, to say the least. So 4.5 for the Cowboys. It all depends on the injury report this week with the Saints, and again with Hill taking first team snaps. We're not sure what his mobility like is with his foot. Alvin Kamara sitting out last week with a sprained MCL, and anytime you hear MCL, ACL, it's never a good sign. And this would be week 4 that he's missed since the Atlanta game. So, there's some real cause for concern. Now we're sitting at 5-6, and 9-7 is realistic, but it's got to start now. But against the spread, I think those things are kind of out the window. So, there is some cause for concern, and 4.5 in the dome is pretty much saying the dome's irrelevant right now with all your injuries and the way you've been playing at home anyway. So 4.5, very respectable number, and I don't see this going over 44. Both teams are pretty stout defensively. Sean Payton is raving about Micah Parsons, and they put up numbers against the Raiders. So it's interesting matchup, and I'll allude the picks to you two gentlemen keeping better track this season than I have on a personal front. So, but that's what it's looking like, just to kind of lead into that.
Gotcha. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Cowboys 4.5 point road favorites in New Orleans.
Yeah, the line has moved just a little bit. It's at 4.5 on Vegas Insider. It's still at 5 on my bookie. Now, one thing that is going to be big is the absence of 6 coaches for the Cowboys due to COVID. It's like including their head coach, who is not going to travel with the team. So they've got a makeshift coaching staff, which they'll be in communication. But for people who don't remember last year, the big COVID year, that swept through, I believe it was Cleveland at one time, or Denver. It was one of those teams where it's just like, the whole coaching staff can't be there. And it worked against that club. So that, I think, is going to be part of an issue for Dallas. Dallas has been on the road 4-1 against the spread, but in the last 3 games, 3 of the last 4, they haven't covered the spread at all. Even in Jerry's house, they didn't cover the spread. So this is one of those games where you kind of have to throw a lot of it out the window, because it seems like all year long we've been pretty practical at making our picks, and then some wacky thing happens, and what shouldn't happen just absolutely happens. So at -5 on my bookie, I would take, I'd get another point. I'll take New Orleans +6, but definitely under 47.5.
Yeah, I agree on the under. I think this is going to be a physical game, best case scenario, for the Saints. Trevor Siemian doing everything he can out there. But it's, unfortunately we saw it Thanksgiving night. At times it's, as an Eagle fan, believe me, I'll get to it in a bit, but it's hard to watch at times. I call it offensive offense, because it's really, that's where you look at the time that Drew Brees was there, because I really think these quarterbacks, the Aaron Rodgers, the Mahomes, when he's on his game, even the Brady and things, they make it look so easy. They make it look that just essentially anyone can stand back there and just pick defenses apart. And it's not the case in this situation. And, getting Kamara back would be massive for them. It is difficult. However, you look at the Cowboys, obviously the coaching situation, that's going to be, that won't help. Believe me, it might not hurt a ton, but it can't do any positives in my mind, especially on the road in an environment like that. Obviously it's not the dome of what it used to be, where it won't be rocking. I mean, it's still going to be very loud. But for the Cowboys, their biggest thing, I think, is they have to get, or at least try to get the crowd out of it early. I think they get away from what they do very well and run the football. And I think they do try and air it out. And I think there will be mistakes that could be made. And, if this is a close game early or going into the half, I think New Orleans is in great shape. I just do worry about this game getting out of hand and the Saints getting into a situation where they're down 14-0 going into the second quarter and Trevor Siemian stuck throwing the ball 40 to 50 times, because we're not getting +6 or +5 for the Saints if he throws the ball that much. So I'm a big – sorry.
Is there a Zeke Elliott report out?
Oof, that's a great question.
I could have swore I heard he was out, but the big deal is the backup running back's been better anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought I heard there was a report out that he was sitting out this practices with questionable toward the game. So that's up
He
in the
did
air.
practice today.
And
He did
Jerry
practice
Jones,
today.
there was a quote from Jerry Jones that he, quote, expects a serious load from Zeke versus the Saints.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I had heard that as well. And you're right. I mean, Tony Pollard, 25 out of probably other 31 teams, he's getting the bulk of the carries.
100%.
Yeah.
But, the other thing I wanted to allude to, you give credit to you, you're mentioning all those other quarterbacks. They all have this factor about them. There's the Brady factor, the Rodgers factor, the Russell Wilson factor. There's no factor with the Saints right now when it was the Breeze factor. So there's definitely been paying its dues this season. And, I like Raider Jim's assessment. Get that extra point if it's at 6 on my bookie. Get that extra point if you're positioning yourselves for winning. Just kind of like a lot of teams got to do in the NFL. They got to position themselves to win. Get that point. I like 47 under. So position yourselves in a position to win. Regardless of the earnings, I guess, right?
Yep. Moving on to the NFC North matchup. It's going to be up in Detroit, the Motor City, Minnesota hosting the Detroit Lions hosting the Minnesota Vikings, the still winless Detroit Lions. The Vikings are 7-point favorites. The over-under here is 46.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Detroit +7 at home, trying to get that elusive first win.
What an abysmal team. I really thought they would have pulled it off last week. They didn't. I don't see it being any different because Minnesota, after Minnesota's game last week, they're not in the best of moods. They're not doing the best. They're only 2-4 on the road this year, but that's still markedly above 0-5 at home by the Lions, who are 0-10 overall. So I think on this one, it's going to be Minnesota. I think that, maybe cheat the half point, take Minnesota -6.5. 46.5. That's going to be interesting. That's the current. It started at 48. It's down to 46. I didn't see anything injury wise that should have moved it as much.
Dalvin will be out. Dalvin Cook, but that
He
was already expected after the game on Sunday.
All right. Well, then that might explain it. So even at that -6.5 under 47, but this is Minnesota's game. Detroit's just a wreck.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on your point about Dalvin Cook being out, it's maybe a bit of a similar situation in Dallas. Now, I don't think Madison is better than Dalvin Cook, but he's another guy that 24 teams would probably gladly like to have him in their running back room, and probably he'd get a load, probably first team or however much that you could go in this day and age of, this. A lot of teams do that running back by committee. So Madison will be able to step in more than likely very well for Cook, especially a nice little warm-up game, before maybe they get into the full playoff push. But Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts? The Minnesota 7-point favorites against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, what a tough sledding for Dan Campbell and his Lions. He's done everything he's been able to do emotionally and spiritually, competitive spiritually, with that team. If this was week 4, week 5, I would definitely take the Lions to cover, just because the way they were losing. But right now, I don't know if there's anything he could really say at this point in the season to just get these guys to finish strong. Such a dejected game last week, and it's kind of taken the emotion out of that locker room, and hopefully not coach. But I hope they fight like coach expects them to. But it's still, I think it's just too much right now. And it being in the division, thank goodness it's just at home. I guess if you could take any win in this battle, it's that they get to sleep in their own beds at night, and not have to travel back home to a destination or a hotel room. So I guess you could take that for a win. But, it's just a tough every given Sunday, though, right, is what they say. Not this Sunday. Sorry. So it's just a tough sledding. And they're already projected in these mock drafts to take edge. So it's kind of done.
Yeah, looking ahead for the Lions, they'll be at Denver, probably going to be tough to win that one. Home to Arizona, you're not going to win that one. Away to Atlanta, away to Seattle, probably not. And then, home, the last game of the season against the Packers. I mean, the only saving grace in that game is maybe you hope the Packers aren't playing for anything and you get to see Jordan Love instead of Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams. But in terms of this week for the Lions, I think the only thing that would give me pause is how inconsistent the Vikings have been. Now that's, I think more, we saw Kirk Cousins this past weekend kind of revert a little bit back to that Kirk Cousins of kind of what the hell is he doing out there? The Dalvin Cook situation, like I said, Madison is going to be, because this team has to be run the ball first, or at least work off of play action. So without Dalvin Cook being in there, that makes things a little more complicated. Madison needs to get his carries, but once again, I don't think this is a game. The only thing you should be worried about is maybe a late backdoor that gets this to a 6-point game, a garbage time touchdown, but I don't think that the Lions are going to be able to get it done this week. I just think kind of what Raider Jim talked about, the Vikings have way too much to play for. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're the 7th seed in the NFC right now at 5-6. So they know that essentially the destiny's in their hands, and no one will take them serious if they lose to the Lions. Let's just be honest. So I do expect the Vikings to get the job done. And I do like the cover here. However, I don't think I'm going to put my money on it just because of the fact they have been a bit of a letdown. I will stay under 46.5. Detroit offensively is not good at all. But moving on to the Arizona Cardinals heading to the Chicago Bears. Arizona is 8-point favorites. The over under here is 50.5. I'll get this one started. Obviously, unfortunately, if you're talking about the Bears, first and foremost, you have to talk about Matt Nagy. Now I'm, all for fans voicing their opinions on coaches and things like that. I think when you see videos of, Matt Nagy at his son's high school football game and the crowd chanting "Fire Nagy," I think that's a bit much. But I've never lived in the Midwest. I've never had to live through snowstorms where there's nothing to do except watch sports and, things like that. So not judging, I just don't condone that. But it's gotten pretty nasty in Chicago. And I think the biggest problem is what it is doing to Justin Fields. Once again, there's nothing good that's coming out of this. Will this spur him on? And, will this be the beginning of 5 head coaches in 8 years or whatever it will be? Who knows? But if we can go back and look at, the Alex Smith, sometimes, just needing to get away or get a fresh sense is something new, is something that can help. But right now for the Bears, they barely squeak by the Lions. And, look, a win is a win. I understand that. And they're technically still, in that hunt, if you will. But Arizona, I think, is going to come into town. I think Arizona is another team that's another kind of horse racing analogy is you're kind of chasing. You have a chase horse that you have to keep going for. Well, that's what Arizona has now in that division, even if it's not in front of them, because San Francisco's making a move, even with the Rams kind of struggles. Arizona has to stay steady. I think they get the job done. 8 points does seem like a lot, especially on the road. But I think they get the job done here. I'd like to get it, maybe wait it out if it gets down to 7.5 and I can buy a half point to get closer to that. In terms of the over under here, I actually like the over 45. I think Arizona will be able to put some points up on the board, and Chicago will have enough garbage time opportunities to get us both there to 45. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Arizona 8-point favorites on the road in Chicago.
Yeah, Arizona's in a good spot right now. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC, and right behind them is Green Bay. That's going to be quite a finish. Oddly enough, they are playing the Bears this week, and next week, the number 2 seed Green Bay will be playing the Bears. So the Bears might as well wear jerseys that say Everlast, because they're just going to be punching bags for the next couple of weeks. Arizona, I think, covers it. Now, again, to your point about getting the point, again, on my bookie, right now, you can get Arizona -7.
Oh, there you go.
You could even get that half point, get it down to 6.5. You're good to go. I like Arizona to cover on the my bookie line. I like the over on this one. The over under is 45, I think, something to that nature. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is not that he was playing his best season, but Khalil Mack's out for the year now. He is done, and it's really a shame. As I was looking down the injury lists, I'm seeing a lot more of that already. Here we are, week 11, 12, whatever it is, and it's just like out for the season, out for the season, out for the season. We'll get to McCaffrey here in a little bit, and once again, he's out for the season. So we'll see, because they're asking an awful lot of these guys to finish up, another 6 games. In most cases, it's going to be rough. But again, Arizona, I think they've got this one, and weather's not going to be a factor, nothing. So it's all for them.
And, with the change in, seeding, the extra playoff team, that 1 seed has always been very important, no doubt about it. But now it is even more important because you are the only team that gets that extra week. It used to be top 2 seeds get it. So, the 2 seed, okay, well, maybe we'll have to go to the 1 seed eventually, but we still get a bye. Not anymore. Even the 2 seeds going to have to play on wild card weekend. So
backing up to that Minnesota game, they're actually in the 8th spot right now.
Oh, they are. Okay.
They're in the 8th spot. Washington is in the
that's who it was. I apologize. Yes. Washington was that. It's still 5-6 though, I believe, but
that is correct.
Yeah. And then we want to thank Coach for stopping in. He had to head out a little earlier, but he gave us some great insight into the Saints and everything that's going on there. But moving on to another NFC South matchup, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. Tampa Bay 11-point favorites on the road. The over-under here is 50.5. Raider Jim, I'll let you get us started. Tampa Bay, big favorites on the road in Atlanta.
Well, I got comfortable with Atlanta for a few weeks, and I thought, boy, they're going to start putting it together. And then last week, it's like, the wheels started falling right off the wagon again. Tampa Bay, they haven't been playing their best ball, but they're the number 3 seed right now in the NFC. 8-3, that's nothing to be ashamed about for sure. I think they go in and they take care of business in Atlanta, no problem. 11's kind of a lot. Maybe take it down to 10.5 or 10. I do think it'll go over, though. I think there's going to be points on the board on both sides. These are two classic quarterbacks that love to do let's see who can throw the most and score the most. So I think it's going to be a good game.
I agree. I like Atlanta to cover here. I don't think they win the game. 11 is a number that, look, it's a road game. It's a division game. You're going to get everything you got from Atlanta, and Atlanta's another team, 5-6. They, were hardly impressive last week, beating the Jaguars by only 7 points. But, like I said, they're 5-6. They're firmly in the hunt for that, final 7th playoff spot. I think that they come into this game. I hate to say it, but I would not be surprised to see this, them up by 10 at halftime and everyone going, oh my gosh, what's going on? And they end up losing this game by 10. Just one of those kind of, they caught the Buccaneers maybe, lacking for a little bit. And then they took a deep breath and then they beat them up eventually, but even then we'll get that cover. This is one, like I said, I think Tampa is a very, very good team. But 11 points for me, I think it's a bit much. And I agree with the over-under here. I think 2 offenses that are going to be able to put some up. Look, if there was one thing we saw last week from Indy against Tampa Bay can be ran against. Now, there aren't a whole lot of running games like Indy. Don't get me wrong. Not anybody can do it, but it can be done. And look, I haven't gotten a whole lot right this year, but in the offseason, I talked about Cordell Patterson that, hey, keep an eye on this guy on the Falcons and the way he uses him, or they use him. And he's been really good. I don't know if there's the most, versatile player award, but he's definitely that guy. And we'll see how they kind of factor him into that, because I think that's how you beat Tampa Bay. It's not run between the tackles, here we go. You got to keep them guessing. Where is he? Where is Cordell Patterson? He can be lined up anywhere. We'll see how that goes, but I'm very confident in the over here. I think we're definitely going to see some points being scored. And then obviously being in a dome, you don't have to worry about any weather, even if it is just kind of the heat that you maybe from the NFC South. So moving on to an AFC West matchup that will be on Sunday Night Football. A very interesting one as well. Denver heading to Kansas City. The Chiefs are 10-point favorites, and the over-under here is 47. Raider Jim, this is obviously your jurisdiction, so I'm going to let you get it started. Kansas City, 10-point favorites at home against their rival Broncos.
Does Denver win the game? Not necessarily. Does Denver cover the 10? Absolutely. I think I think they are going to come out. They gave up Von Miller to the Rams, and how's that played out for the Rams? It hasn't, but it's the Broncos played a fantastic game last week. And it wasn't this, in the trenches grinding kind of game. I mean, there was points all over against the Chargers. So I think they proved to themselves, yeah, we can go out there and do this stuff. And I think they will get out there in Kansas City. I think Mahomes and the boys, they had a nice little streak where they have been able to get themselves back on top of the AFC West. But I'm not convinced that they are the team of last year or the year before. So it's going to be a good game. I think Denver defense is going to come out. Denver covers the 10, but I still like over 47. I think there's going to be points in this one. I think they'll be able to put it up against Kansas City.
Yeah, these are two teams that obviously early on for Denver, they looked, what was it, 3-0 or whatever, they get out to that great start, and, you can go back and look at the teams they beat, and I understand that. And then they struggled again. And we all kind of thought, okay, this is the Denver team. They're going to finish 4-12 or 5-11 or whatever it would come out to, 17 games. And they righted the ship. I mean, last week they played a near perfect game. Yeah. When they needed it. And that's key as well. It's one thing to go out and put all the pieces together week 3. But to do it when, your season is essentially on the line and no one's getting eliminated last week if that doesn't go well, but you're having to then get over 14 or 3 teams to get where you want to be heading into the final 2 months of the season. Now, not so much. And you get a shot at the Kings, or at least the champs. And I completely agree with you. Does Denver win this game? No, but this is going to be a close game. This is going to be a game that will probably not be decided until the final 3 or 4 minutes or less of this game, judging by how these teams usually play. I've been very, very impressed with the way Denver has come back, and also impressed with the way Kansas City has fought back. Now, they're not the dominant team that we've seen over the last few years, but I am been impressed with the way their defense has come out. And once again, they're not world beaters. They're not going to be the 85 Bears, anything like that. But I mean, this team was giving up 500 yards to anybody. And now they're kind of an above average defense. And I think that's something you have to applaud. And if the offense, as crazy as it sounds, if the offense can kind of figure it out, they'll, I think, get to another level. But like I said, I don't see Kansas City losing here. But there's no way this should be a double-digit line, even with it being in Arrowhead, even with the records the way they are. So yeah, full agreement there. We're going to see some points being scored, so take the over, and Denver plus 10 if you want to get a half point too, just in case. But I don't think you'll need it on that one. So moving on to an AFC South matchup. It's kind of, two teams in opposite directions. Obviously, the Indianapolis Colts heading to Houston. The Colts are 9-point favorites. The over-under here is 45.5. I'll get this one started. Me and my family, we do a little pool. We all pick, the games. Me, my mom, my stepdad, my brother, and I've been trying to get them to do it on spreads, not just who wins the game. They know that I have a bit of an advantage there, so they're not fully on board with that just yet. But anyways, I picked the Colts in our, outright in this one, and I really thought the Colts were going to get the job done. And I felt like most of the game, that's what was going on. And then we saw Carson Wentz kind of makes some mistakes, firing the ball deep when he probably didn't need to throw a 45-yard bomb on first down. You probably don't need to do that into double coverage. And you can't do that against Brady. You can't do that against good teams like Tampa Bay. You can do that against Houston. Let's be honest. So, I think Carson Wentz, and I'll be the first one to admit, we'll get to this game next, but I was looking at the Carson Wentz picture and just, kind of looking at him longingly after this past Sunday. Like, I miss Carson Wentz, that drop back passer that can kind of gunsling it. But at the same time, you do kind of get what we saw this past Sunday with Indy. I don't think that matters. 9 points. I think you're safe to lay that down. Personally, I'll stay away from that. I do like the under here, 45.5. I just look, Houston has, they're that team that you just kind of rub their top of the head and say, hey, you know what, go have fun. You can't really be too critical of this team. I don't know. Like I said, I still take my hat off to this organization for their fact that they could very easily put a big FU to their fans and public relations and start Deshaun Watson and possibly win football games. But they're doing the right thing. They're paying Deshaun Watson. That's what they have to do. They'll deal with that at a later date. But they're paying him to sit and go one in whatever. And you know what? I'm not going to jump down their throats and be, yes, a terrible football team, even though they kind of are. They have gotten a little bit better with Tyrod back, but they're still not a good football team. But once again, I at least do applaud them by doing the right thing from a social standpoint. Gambler side of things, I think you're probably safe laying down the 9 points for Indy and taking the under, just because I'm not convinced Houston can get into high teens. And that's probably what you're going to need to get us that over, I should say. So Raider Jim, what are your thoughts in the AFC South matchup?
Yeah, Indianapolis had a game last week. That was a fun game. And this is kind of like almost a nice, kind of like if you go out and you're boxing and you have a really, really good sparring partner who just takes you to the limit for 3 rounds. And then the next 3 rounds, you get that guy who maybe isn't quite the highest caliber. Well, that's what we got going on here. Houston, they pulled the upset a couple of weeks ago when they got a victory over a very beat up Tennessee team. That's not the team that they would have played week 1. But they got the victory. But then they go out and they play the Jets, and look what happens to them. So I think Indianapolis is just going to be fired up for this one. I agree with you, 9 points all the way. That's fine. I think you're going to be fine there. 45.5 on Vegas Insider. So, take under 45.5. I think you're good to go. But yeah Houston's just, again, what a shame.
Yeah, it's unless you're a Colts fan or a Texans fan, you're probably not going to be missing much if you don't tune in for this one. With all due respect, there are definitely going to be much better games on the plate. But the next one won't be one of those, by the way. It is the Philadelphia Eagles heading to the Meadowlands for a second week in a row, but this time it'll be the Jets side of New York as they face them. This is the 17th game, if you will. Obviously not the 17th game, but you play that extra one, and the Eagles get essentially one of the easier extra games, if you will, being the Jets. The Eagles are 6.5 point favorites, and the over under is 45. Exactly. Yeah. 45. Now I'm just going to tell you this right now. I'll get this out of the way. The Philadelphia Eagles are not 6.5 points better than anybody. The Philadelphia Eagles are not 6.5 points better than anybody on the road.
We got a technical issue on this.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Oh.
We there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Uh-oh. Yeah. We're back.
Laggy. Okay. Now I can hear you.
Okay. All righty.
Now I got it.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, I would take the Jets here. I think the Jets get the job done. This isn't, once again, do they win the game? I don't think so, but this is going to be probably a field goal game. Going back to last week, the Eagles, for a second year in a row, kind of had things laid out for them. Now, they weren't a shoe-in to win the division or make the playoffs, But if you look at the Eagles' schedule, they had 2 against the Giants, 2 against Washington, and 1 against the Jets. Okay, you can really look at that and go, yeah, you can go 4-1. Even being an average team, you can go 4-1 and get the job done. Not anymore. Not losing your first game against the Giants in the manner in which they did. I'm not going to sit here and jump on Jalen Reagor because he dropped 2 balls on that final drive. I'm not going to bring up the fact that Justin Jefferson was available and Jalen Reagor was drafted instead of him. I'm not going to bring up the fact that Carson Wentz could have made 25 to 35% more throws than Jalen Hurts can. And I'm not going to bring up the fact that the Eagles are not only one-dimensional, but they are forced into one-dimensionality.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a word, but one-dimensionality is that's what they are. They don't go out there and go, let's run the ball because we really like to run the ball. Let's run the ball because we have 4 or 5 routes that we can exploit. And we have to use about 1 or 2 a quarter because by the 3rd or 4th time, there's nothing there. And that's not going to get the job done. Now, once again, I don't think the Eagles necessarily lose this game, but I don't know if they cover. Now, the only thing I will say is they have handled their opponents or their business against lackluster opponents. You look at Denver, you look at New Orleans, you look at some of the other games, Atlanta early season. So the Eagles can show that ability to kind of say, hey, play bully ball and get the job done. There is a big question mark, however, Jalen Hurts' ankle. He says he's ready to go. Most people say he'll probably get rolling. My question is that what's best? Because for Jalen Hurts to be at his best, I need his legs to be at very high level. Not 100%, but at least higher than 85%. If Gardner Minshew has to come in, you need to make that decision now because there's no playbook overlap between Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' playbook is his playbook. Gardner Minshew's is drop back, throw the ball 40 yards. So there's no, we'll put Gardner Minshew in with Jalen Hurts' playbook or vice versa. So the decision has to be made pretty early. Has it been made and they're just cagey with it? I don't know. I don't even know who's the better option here, but it's going to be interesting. Take the Jets. I really just think the Jets are the better option here. I don't even know if I'm going to watch this game, to be completely honest. It might pop up on Red Zone, but it's going to be, this is a no-win situation for the Eagles. If they go out and they win by 20, I'll be like, why didn't they win by 30? If they go out and they lose, you tear it down and we ask for Carson to come home, but we'll deal with that if we get there. Hopefully the Eagles can at least get a win, but I don't think they get a cover. In terms of the over-under being 45, I'm taking the under. I think you have 2 offenses that, are allergic to scoring. And until that changes, I'm not putting any money on the opposite of that. So, but Ray or Jim, what are your thoughts? Eagles somehow 6.5 point favorites on the road against the Jets.
Yeah, 6.5. I almost like it. Would I buy it down and take 6? Yeah, I think so. There's just something about the Jets. The Jets are 2-3 against the spread at home this year. So it's not like they're a strong team against the spread anyway. And Philadelphia is actually 4-3, I believe, right now overall against the spread. So on the road. So they're not doing too bad. And when they cover the spread, they win. When they don't cover the spread, it doesn't have the same results. But I do like Philadelphia. I'll take Philadelphia -6 on this one, but I'm with you. I think it's going to be a very low scoring game. I just don't think the Jets are too inconsistent. And I believe this is the one game where rain will be a factor.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wet field. And so I think that just does nothing but make it a more positive outlook for your under bet on this game.
Agreed. And also to kind of double down on the Eagles. And obviously I'm a very pessimistic Eagle fan, if you haven't already noticed. If you're a first time listener, welcome. If not, what have you been paying attention? But anyways, for the Eagles, the one saving grace we had was, hey, we have 3 first-round picks. And there was looking that we were going to have 3 top 10 picks. Well, the Dolphins and Colts have decided to all of a sudden become either good or, in the Dolphins' case, average to get them, where they are right now. I think the picks right now, that it's 3 through 9. It's Giants, Jets, Eagles. So pretty crazy there, how that could go, but still obviously a long way to go. But if you're already looking at a mock draft as a fan, your season's probably not going too well. But moving on to another bit of AFC West versus AFC North matchup. It'll be the Chargers heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals are 3-point favorites here. The over-under here is 50.5. Obviously, the AFC West, so we're going to pass it over to Raider Jim first. Who you like here? Chargers 3-point underdogs on the road in Cincinnati.
Yeah, the AFC West is starting to look just like it did last year, where nobody wants it, and that's how Kansas City ends up top of the pile. And Chargers, they went into Denver, and I saw the article where it was, oh, well, you know, that's because Herbert never played at high altitude like that. Well, everybody was playing in high altitude. All 106 guys were playing in high altitude. I'm sorry. And they just, I think they kind of exposed themselves, and to a good Cincinnati team. Cincinnati's playing pretty good ball right now. They are in the playoff. Let's see. Kansas or Cincinnati's actually the number 5 right now.
Yeah.
So they know, hey, we're good. We're already there. We just have to keep making our name, and we got to, you know, hold fast and stick, you know, stand our ground. Chargers are the number 7 team right now, right above the Raiders. And I don't see this going well for the Chargers, because not only, even though it's not going to be, you know, at Mile High Stadium, it's going to be down. Now it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. It's the second road game in a row. And I don't know that they have had time to recover from what happened to them in Denver. And I don't see them coming out with any more of a complete package. They did points. There's going to be points galore in this one. So I definitely like the over in this one, which is right now at 50.5. Cincinnati -3. Yeah, I say Cincinnati covers on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cincinnati early on looked really good, had some hiccups early on, or, you know, mid-season. And I'll be one of the first to admit, this past weekend, I thought the Steelers were going to take care of business, and wow, was I wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just, yeah, you know, it was a situation of, I felt like a young team that got really high on themselves early on. And then all of a sudden, Jamar Chase, that was, you know, a shoe-in for not only rookie of the year, but, you know, possibly MVP. Now you might not even be the best wide receiver in that class, with Waddle and Smith doing what they're doing. So, you know, they kind of felt like that. But what I've seen lately, they're figuring it out. And I think this is for the Chargers. Look, you can take them out of San Diego, but you can't take San Diego out of them, because this is a quintessential San Diego story, folks. If you're familiar with most teams in San Diego, is a lot of hype early on, and they usually start pretty well, and then all of a sudden the waters get a little warm. The eyes start to, you know, gaze upon you from numerous directions, and we see what we saw this past weekend. Now I've been impressed with what I've saw from Detroit, or I'm sorry, excuse me, from Denver. But the on paper, the Chargers should easily handle the Broncos, even on the road. And in terms of Justin Herbert not playing at altitude, you know, he's not a big time running quarterback. There are very few guys, maybe the kicker, that are running less than Herbert. I mean, maybe if he was an offensive lineman, something like that, because I feel like those big guys. You know, I've been hiking out there in Denver, and believe me, you know, it's you don't have to be running to feel it. Believe me, I understand that. But it's just such a weak excuse, I feel like. I think you just have to tip your hat to a defense that, as you said, back to Denver, got rid of Von Miller and has seemed to have gotten better. And someone needs to be, you know, credited for that. And a lot of it's Vic Fangio. But back to the Chargers in this case, I just think 3 points here. I think Cincinnati gets the job done. If you want to buy a half point just in case, to cover, you know, just in case it is a last second field goal from Cincinnati, which it may very well be. Easy for me to say. But in terms of the over-under, I agree with you. 50.5. I think we're definitely going to see some points being scored. I could see this being a 31-27 game, 34-31, something kind of crazy, even higher than that.
Should be a very entertaining game.
100%.
I think this is going to be one of the games that would be worth watching.
Well, I think these are two, if you're looking at the future of the NFL and the quarterback position, I hate when they say this is the next Brady Manning, because I don't ever think we're going to see something like that. But this is one of the 4 or 5 young quarterbacks that for the next 10 years are going to have some battles. And this is going to be, one of the first, obviously, the one we'll look back on 20 years from now and go, look how young they were. But I think Burrow and Herbert, obviously both here to stay, and I can't wait to see them go at it. But yeah, I just think Cincinnati's better right now, and make sure you take that over, because I think we're going to see a lot of points being scored. Heading over to another East matchup. It'll be the NFC versus AFC East. The Giants at the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are 5-point favorites. This over-under is 42. This is an interesting one. Obviously, the Giants last week took down the Eagles. It was a good win for the Giants. I'm sure they're terribly happy. But there were a lot of mistakes made by both teams. Saquon Barkley did have, an okay game, which for him, I think is something to build on. Daniel Jones, he continues to turn the ball over, and I think a lot of people are ready to move on from him. And conversely, the Miami Dolphins might be the hottest team you're not thinking of right now. They've won 4 straight. They're, went from being one of the worst teams in all of football to in the hunt, if you will. I mean, I feel bad for some of these AFC teams, looking at the the Washington football team at 5-6 as a playoff team or whatever it is, and some of these other teams at 6-5 are still on the outside looking in the AFC. But for the Dolphins, they are getting better. They're improving. I think the Dolphins get the job done here. -5. I think that is easily attainable for the Dolphins. In terms of the over/under, 42. I'm going to go over here. I think that's a little low. I think we are going to see some points being scored. I think Miami does, like I said, get, this is a 24, maybe 28-20 type game. In that type of situation, maybe a garbage time touchdown. You might have to really kind of wait out the over/under longer than the actual spread in this case. But I like Miami to cover here over the Giants. And I'll take the over 42, a little bit low, although I could very well see this being a 2017 game, and you just kind of kick yourself on that one. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Miami hosting the Giants.
Yeah, I pulled up my bookie again, and I've got Vegas Insider up. They've got it at Miami -4.
Oh, wow.
And they've got the over/under at 40.5. So
wow. Holy
jump
cow.
all over those. Yeah,
Huh.
I'm with you. Miami, they went from a sure loss weeks 2 through 6, I think it was, if not more than that. And they have, as you just said, they've put together a great run of victories, including beating Baltimore.
Yeah.
So, okay, you beat Carolina, but even that, when they played Carolina, they weren't supposed to win that one, and they took care of business. The Giants, on the other hand, inconsistent. They're 1-4 on the road this year, and they're doing this pattern where it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one. Well, they had their win one last week, so I assure you they're not going to win this one. They're not going to be able to take care of business against Miami. I think Miami's just got, they have really started to gel, and they're putting together good games on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to shut it down. But at 40.5, you got to go over on that. You don't even have to take a half a point. This has got to be easy 27-21, something like that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. And Miami continues to roll 3-3 at home right now. So watch out, Miami's on the run.
Yeah, and they can plenty of time to make a run and sneak their way in. And we've seen plenty of times in the past. The best time to be playing your best football is late. So moving on to, obviously, Raider Jim's jurisdiction. You have the Washington football team heading to Vegas to take on the aforementioned Raiders. The Raiders are 2.5-point favorites. The over/under here, 49.5. Of course, Raider Jim, this one is all yours.
The Raiders. Yes, the Raiders who ruined my pumpkin pie last week. It's, as I started to talk to somebody and tell them about, we were talking about the Raiders. I said, this is exactly what I said going into like week 3 or 4. Great. You guys are off to a good start. You got to stay there. You got to take care of your own business, because you don't want to get down to week 11, week 12, and have the team and the fan base sitting there looking at all these variables. Well, if the Chargers lose to Cincinnati, then we beat these guys. And if so-and-so can beat this one, and if these guys there's too many moving parts there. You can't go into the playoffs in a 17-game season like this at 10-7. You're going to get beat, and they're not posturing themselves to make a good run in the playoffs, even if they make it. I've taken some heat from a couple of people because I've made remarks about the Raider defense. Is it playing better than it has the last few seasons? Yes. But did you know overall, they are like number 30, 31 overall. They're giving up a lot of yards. They're giving up a lot of points. The conversion rate in the red zone is ridiculous. Their defense is like, or teams against the defense in the red zone are like 60% success rate. Not the Raiders' offensive percentage when they're in the red zone. They don't have a strong running game. They're a one-dimensional game. They're still trying to get Josh Jacobs to be the superstar. They give Drake a touch every now and then. Man, thankfully they've got some decent receivers, but now Carr's getting back to his old ways of, lofting the ball. He's got these big rainbow passes, or he just throws it to the wrong jersey, whatever you want to say. And Washington on the other side of that, man, that was a fantastic game they played Monday night. You can't say fantastic for the way they held on. I mean, they came back. It was close. Wasn't an exciting game the first half. Okay, and then you would appreciate this because I just screaming because Washington scores the touchdown. Washington goes for the extra point, and the Seahawks pick up the ball and go. And I thought, and that sums up betting this year. It just summed up the whole thing for betting. You had to laugh about it in a way, but then I had taken Washington money line. I took the under, so I was covered on everything. But I'm telling you, Washington has stepped into the playoff picture. They're where the Raiders want to be. And both you and I hold Coach Rivera in high regard with a lot of respect. Man, they've won 3 in a row. They have won 3 in a row, and they're coming into the Vegas house. And you know what? It's not like it hasn't been that way for a long time. It used to be, you don't come into our house and we went, well, it's this brand new house. Yeah, but if you want to come in and take advantage of us, go ahead. That's kind of how the Raiders playing ball these days. The last 3 wins, they beat the Seahawks on Monday night. They beat the Panthers before that. And they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they were 9.5-point underdogs. So much as it pains me to do it, I would tell you take Washington money line in this one. I would also tell you, and I hope I'm wrong, but I would also tell, and over 49.5, yeah, I think there'll be some points on the board because that's just the way Vegas, the Raiders are playing these days. They won the game the other day, but even at that, it was that field goal. But they put up 69 points with Dallas.
Yeah.
So to go over, that's not going to be a big trick. But I would take Washington money line on this one. I think the Raiders are going to probably come out flat after the big win.
Yeah, I agree. I think Washington gets the win here. Washington is, man, Taylor Heineke is something else. Just when you think he's figured out and he's going to fizzle out, and it was a funny story it was a great story, and we'll look fondly back on it, and they'll do a 30 for 30 and we'll all go, oh, that was fun. But he's still there and he's still making plays, and he's one of the few, obviously Cam Newton signing Carolina will, all that happened, blah, blah, blah. But there was a lot of talk that Cam Newton going to Washington, because look, that's all Washington needs. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down. And then it's okay, they can't rely on Taylor Heineke. Well, they are, and it didn't look great early on. But as you said, they get that win against Tampa Bay. And it seemed like everything kind of clicked. I think in that locker room, they all looked around and said, oh, hey, we're actually as good as we think we are. And I think Taylor Heineke's getting the job done. I love the story. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to because he's in my division and they're rivals and all that stuff. But it's hard not to, kind of fall in love with what's going on. You have the Ron Rivera. And hats off to this defense as well that has fought really well after losing their leader in Chase Young. The exact opposite reaction.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't, they were struggling for a defense that we thought was going to be really good this year at full strength was not even close. And then it seems like they've lost some of their top players and they've gotten better. And that, I think a lot of credit goes to obviously Ron Rivera and that coaching staff, but to the players as well, knowing that there's still, there's still stuff to be done. You can't make excuses. I think Washington does get the job done here. As you said, money line, I think probably get yourself probably going to be around plus 130, plus 150 in that neighborhood. So that'll be nice. And I agree with you. The points, are going to be scored. Washington's defense looked great against Seattle. But I think a lot of that was the fact that there was no protection for Russell Wilson. And then when there was protection for Russell Wilson,
absolutely,
it looked off. We'll get to that in a bit, but so I do think there are Washington's defense is okay, but they're not, going to keep this under 49 and a half. Same with the Raiders defense. We're going to see some points being scored, but I think Washington ends up with more when it's all said and done, but it is over 49 and a half, I believe. So moving on to, a game that used to be one of the premier matchups in football and maybe still is, but definitely not the rivalry it used to be. It is the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore Ravens are 4-point favorites on the road. The over-under here is 44. Yes, 44. I'll get this one started. Obviously, I brought it up earlier. I expected more out of Pittsburgh last week. Ben Roethlisberger, I don't think there's any middle ground with this guy. He's either going to go up and put a triple-digit quarterback rating up, or he's going to go up and throw 4 interceptions and look like he needs to retire yesterday. What team are you going to get? As crazy as it sounds, I think the Mike Tomlin, there's a lot of talk about, it was Chase Claypool and someone asked him, what do you think can change in practice? And he said, I think they should play music because in warmups and stretching, they're playing music and we're all dancing and we're having a blast. And they asked Casey Hayward to respond to that. And he just shook his head and goes, man, that is not what we need, especially on the practice field. And, Mike Tomlin kind of echoed that in terms of, I think it was Ryan Clark, who has now moved on to the media side of things, saying that, look, this is not a team that people are afraid to play anymore. That aura of the Steelers, it's not there. And they asked Mike Tomlin about that. And he kind of said, look, maybe it sounds like those guys have a better idea of what needs to happen than the guys that are here. And for a head coach to say that, that really tells you something. And the Juju Smith-Schuster, there was a lot of talk of, is he really in it? Full-fledged? Is he, bigger fan of the TikToks and things like that, And at the end of the day, I think they're right. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it's not that fear factory. It's not the terrible towels, put the fear of God in you anymore. That's not the case. But at the same time, I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are a team that, I know that I think they're a top number 1 team in the conference at the moment, top team in the AFC.
Yes.
But my goodness, if the playoffs started today and they were the 1 seed, I don't know if they'd be one of my top 3 picks to make it. I just think they turn the ball over way too much. They are wildly inconsistent at times. And despite the fact being 8-3, I don't know, -4 here. I think they probably get the job done. I'm leaving this one alone. I rarely bet these games just because they're always so hard to gauge, because I do think Mike Tomlin is coaching his ass off this week just because it is the Baltimore Ravens. In terms of the over-under being 44, it goes back to Roethlisberger. What Roethlisberger are we going to see? because I think that's the biggest wild card here. I think Baltimore is going to go out. They're going to put up 24 points or so. But this could be 24-3, and then we're all stuck with the under. And we all expected Pittsburgh to put some points up, never got done. So I'm going to kind of stay away from that, stay away from this game betting wise. But if I had to say it, I would say Pittsburgh does cover the 4, keeps it to within a field goal game, one way or another. And I'd probably say the under, just because I feel like that's how it has to be. If this game is a bit of a shootout, Baltimore is going to cover easily. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Nobody cares if they're going to go play Pittsburgh. It's like nobody cares if they're going to go play the Raiders anymore. It's like, okay, great, nice uniforms, but the football team is very mediocre. And the Steelers right now, their last 3 games, they've got 2 losses and a tie. And in this one, as far as the over-under and the point spread goes, that tie was against the Detroit Lions. And they were 6-point favorites in that game, and they only put up 16 points. Now, the only thing they have going for them this week is Baltimore isn't how they're 8-3 and the number 1 team in the AFC boggles the mind. It truly does, but they are, and that's what counts. So on this one, I will tell you, I think Baltimore definitely covers at 4.5, depending on which sport book you're looking at. On the over-under 44, I don't know. I just don't know if Denver's going to put up many points. Again, going back to their last 3 games, they've put up on the average, let's see, 16, that's 53, 63. Okay, so they're putting up they're putting up 21 points a game. So, you might get over 44. But they're also playing the Baltimore defense. So they're probably going to get held to 16 points.
Yeah, and I firmly believe we need to start a petition. If the end of the year, the Detroit Lions are 0-16-1, we need to give them the win. We need to figure out a way to say, you know what? Nope, someone stepped out of bounds. That didn't count as a touchdown. And the Steelers lose that game because that'd be a tough one for the Steelers to hold on to. That, you know what? Hey, we couldn't even beat the Lions the year that they couldn't win a game. But right. Moving on to another team that has a lot of issues, actually 2 very big differential issues. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are 13-point favorites. The over-under here is 48. Raider Jim, I'll let you get us started with the Jaguars at the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams aren't the answer to the NFC West like everybody thought they were going to be. And it's a bit surprising. They've had good streaks. They had, had a spot there where they wrapped off 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. Then they lost 3. And they've lost to the 49ers. They've lost to the Packers. They lost to the Titans, which was real surprising to me because the Titans were already beat up when they played the Rams, and the Rams were 7-point favorites on that one. So, wow. I don't know. It is Jacksonville. I'll give you that much. But is this going to be one of those weird games that we've seen all season long where, what do you mean the Rams lost to Jacksonville? You just got to think that it could be out there, but Jacksonville's just bad. They haven't won on the road. Rams a 13-point favorite. Quite honestly, maybe there's your bet. Jacksonville to cover the 13, maybe go 13.5. The over-under is 48. I'll go over 48 on that as well. But Jacksonville's not going to beat the Rams at home. There's no way. They're just not a good team. It's like talking about Houston. It's like talking about the Jets. But then every now and then there's this spark where all we're asking you to do is cover. Kind of like the Lions. All we want you to do is cover. But you're not going to win.
Yeah, I agree. And look, obviously Jacksonville, all kinds of issues. And for the Rams, 0-3 since the Von Miller and Odell Beckham acquisitions. And, you can bring in all the talent and talk about dream teams or super teams all you want. And I would like to talk to you about something called chemistry. And I'm not saying that's the case or lack thereof is the case, but something isn't right. I obviously look, Odell Beckham is a hell of a wide receiver, but the Rams weren't lacking for wide receivers. I feel like they had a really good duo with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp might be the best wide receiver in all of football. And to kind of bring that in, I feel like that it kind of messes with some stuff. I mean, obviously, look, like I said, he's a great football player, Odell Beckham. He's going to make your team better, but it might throw off your mojo. And I think that's what's gone on. Now, for the Jaguars, I think something happened this weekend, and it didn't happen at the NFL level, but something changed. And I think changed the trajectory possibly of the Jaguars and one individual. It's Urban Meyer. And I want us to all go back to, I forget, 2002, 2003, something like that. The Nick Saban, Miami Dolphins. Nick Saban leaves LSU to go to the Dolphins. And we all ask the question, can he do it at the next level? Similar to what we're asking with Urban Meyer. It doesn't go well. Doesn't go well at all. Well, final game of the college football season comes and goes. Mike Schuliz fired from Alabama. Weeks later, Nick Saban says, I am not going to Alabama. And then days later, he goes to Alabama in the middle of the season. Was it Monday or Tuesday? LSU announces Brian Kelly is leaving Notre Dame. He's going to LSU. There's one job in all of college football, if you kind of follow Urban Meyer and his affirmation of programs. Notre Dame has been the place he's always wanted to go. He's always wanted to go there. That's been his apple of his eye, if you will. I would not be surprised if some side negotiations went down and said, look, give me 3 months or give me, I'm going to coach the season out. But when it's all said and done, I'll come to you, because I think he realizes he's in over his head. He realizes I only get 1 first-round draft pick a year. I don't get to go get 5 stars and 14 4 stars and coach.
Or no blue chippers.
Yeah, and I don't get to just, these kids aren't coming in, the Jaguars players aren't coming in awe of Urban Meyer. He's a college coach to them.
Right.
At the college level, Urban Meyer is, oh my gosh, he's a guy who can come in and change your program like that. So I start to wonder, does that start to maybe eke into the locker room? Now, of course, I'm speculating. I don't know any of this, but I would not be surprised if any of this stuff happens. With that being said, 13 points for a team that hasn't won in almost a month. I don't think they won the entire month of November. So yeah, I'm not going to put 13 points. This is another game that's, if you have to watch it, sorry about it. But yeah, I'll take the Jaguars plus 13 just because of the points, not because of anything else. But the over under 48, I think we're going to see some points being scored. I think the Jaguar offense has been okay. And the Rams defense hasn't been, the dominant team we've seen early on. So I'll take the over here as well. With the hope that, it's a 28-38 game or 38-28 game and everyone goes home happy. But San Francisco at Seattle is next up on the docket. I'll get this one started. Obviously we talked about Seattle a bit. This is a team now that, Russell Wilson is not the end. And I'm sorry, no, let me rephrase that. Bringing Russell Wilson in doesn't immediately fix everything. Because when he was out, you could have made excuses. Oh, well, if Russ was in, this team would be improving. Not the case. And it's not all on Russ. There's definitely some blame to go around. He's missing on easy passes, whether it's the psychological effect of the happy feet, knowing he only has 1.5 seconds until he's probably going to get hit. Expecting to get hit even when there's no pressure. I understand that. But that offensive line can't stop anybody. They can't run the football. I don't know how this team figures it out from here on out. And another part of it too, I don't think that with that, you don't have that full home field advantage. You can't be pumped up when you're losing 6-0 in the third quarter. Like it's hard to get pumped up for that, and even though your team's in it and they need you, it's demoralizing to see your team go 3-and-out, 70% of the game. And I don't know if that's going to, be the case. And, it is Seattle. The weather might not be perfect. It takes kind of a lot to be that pumped up. So I think San Francisco's playing good ball. I was impressed with them, what they did this past weekend against Minnesota. Give me San Francisco to cover the 3. The over-under here, I'm going to take the under. I just, until Seattle can show, look, Washington defense, San Francisco's defense is a lot better than Washington's defense. And I don't care if you're on the road or not, or at home now, that doesn't change a whole lot. And if you can only put up whatever, I know they had a late score, but essentially 9 points for the entirety of the game against Washington's defense, you're really going to struggle against San Francisco no matter where you're playing. So I'll take the under until Seattle can prove to me otherwise. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? San Francisco at Seattle.
Yeah, the Seattle offensive line, my gosh, I knew they weren't good, but I didn't know they were that bad. And wow, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Wilson can only do so many things. When you've got that all-star quarterback, future Hall of Famer, yeah, he can do a lot. I'll tell you what I do wish, what I'm really bummed about is the opening line on this one on Vegas Insider was Seattle -1.5. Son of a gun, I really need to look sooner. I really do. I would have jumped all over that and said, yeah, I'll take that. Give me San Francisco +2 points. I'm good. But San Francisco covers this one. They're playing good ball. They're also 4-1 on the road this year. So last time Seattle won 1 game at home. They're 1-5 at home, 1-4 at home. And that's when they beat Carolina. And we just got talking, that Carolina was beat. I think it was Carolina. Maybe it was Jacksonville. Hang on. Excuse me. It was Jacksonville. Jacksonville. And Jacksonville's 2-9. So it's not like, they had a great home victory there. So yeah, Seattle's just, it's not looking good. They are eliminated already from the playoff picture, even if they run it out. So yeah, just, poor Pete, I joked to you guys the other night online and said, yeah, Pete Carroll's going to go coach at Oklahoma because he lost out on going back to USC.
Yeah.
that probably would have been his best shot.
It's the only place he could go and be cheered coming in. And trust me, as a USC fan, we would have been the red carpet, the whatever carpet you want. We would have had people, if you want to walk over our backs, you feel free. But yeah, and then we get Lincoln Riley and it's kind of like Pete who, but yeah, you're right. That was the spot. Now coach went a little, in the group chat, went a little bit below the belt here to my, me being a USC fan saying Pete Carroll's going to go to Notre Dame. Pete Carroll better not go to Notre Dame. I'll tell you that right now. That will get you we will give back those national titles. If he ends up going to Notre Dame, we don't want him. Do not ever announce yourself as a former Trojan if you go to Notre Dame. But yeah, for Seattle, it's it might need to be that time for what's next after Pete Carroll.
Yep.
It'll be one of those things where I think it will be amicable because I think he'll be one of the greatest. I mean, he's the winningest coach. He's the one who got them the title. He's, he changed a lot there. To the surprise of myself, I didn't think that was going to work. Probably the bitterness from myself because I was very bitter for him leaving USC for quite some time, but I've gotten over it because I'm an adult. But it's very, very interesting. And, they all said what I think Mike Tomlin said it, we all get hired just to get fired. So it's not too many people come out of it unscathed. And it looks like Pete Carroll is probably not going to survive. But moving on to the final game of the week, Monday Night Football, a huge AFC East matchup. And look, this time last month, you would have called me crazy if I would have told you the New England Patriots are atop the AFC East. And, not even the Buffalo Bills could have taken them down, but that is the case. And we are going into this very, very interesting matchup. Buffalo is hosting the Patriots. Buffalo's 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 44. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us started on the final game that we'll be talking about this week.
Well, what do you know? You got Baltimore, the number 1 seed in the AFC, the number 2 seed, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots. And boy, there were a lot of doubters, and I thought they'd be better this year. I didn't think they would be this good this year. But you talk about a guy who's just kind of, it's like that Aaron Rodgers thing. Everybody say what you got to say. Go ahead, take all your shots at us. I got a job to do. My job is to coach this team, make this team play football, and get us back on top. Looks like he's done it. Buffalo's actually sitting in the number 6 spot right now. This is a must win for Buffalo, more than it is for New England. And this is what, this is New England's chance to punch an opponent in the mouth. And I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, New England +3 all day long on this one for me. And the over under at 43.5, I'll go over. Definitely. I think there's going to be points on the board. New England, though, they've just, their secondary is just outrageous. And I think that's going to, they're going to have a fantastic game on Sunday. This is going to be a good one. It's nice to see that there's going to be another nice game on a Monday night. This one's going to be worth watching. I've been really surprised that we have yet to see a snow game, a real good old-fashioned snow game. I think there was a cold one up in Green Bay not that long ago. But, by now we're usually seeing Arrowhead Stadium, everything's a blanket of white, or Chicago, it's driving rain. We're just not seeing weather affecting the games. But yeah, this one on Monday night, New England is not going to take what the Raiders don't do. New England's going to do, and that is keep their foot on the neck of the opponent, show some killer instinct, and take care of their own business.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I will say in the offseason, we talked about the AFC East, that I expected the Patriots to be really good this year. And it wasn't because of obviously they brought certain players in, and, Mac Jones was probably an upgrade over Cam Newton, blah, 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 blah. But I really think it was Bill Belichick watching Tom Brady win a Super Bowl without him. And Belichick went, okay, fine. Because the narrative then changed from, because we were all asking that question, right? Who was it? Who was the reason? Because in this world, there's only a black and white answer. There's no middle ground. It has to be one of the two. Either one's the greatest thing ever and the other person has nothing to do with it, right? But we saw that, and I think Belichick went and said, okay, fine, but I'm going to get mine as well. And I think we're seeing it a little bit earlier than expected. The Mac Jones, I knew it. When the Patriots got Mac Jones, I knew he was just going to be good. Even without seeing him in Alabama, there's just something about it. And I was thinking, about, eventually Bill Belichick's going to have to retire. What's next for the Patriots then? And as I'm watching the game, there's Steve Belichick, the defensive coordinator. And I went, oh my gosh, we're going to see the Belichicks.
There's another one.
Yeah, they're going to see the Belichicks coach the Patriots for 40, 50 years. Yeah. And they might win 10, 15 Super Bowls. It could be, the Ryans, if you will. And Rex Ryan wasn't fantastic, but he was still an okay coach at this time. And obviously Buddy Ryan was a great coach. The Patriots they just have it. And they also have something else. You mentioned it. This Monday coming up, every bit of pressure that any team feels, it's going to be Buffalo. It's going to be at home. They're going to be in a situation. Buffalo is expected to win this division. No one expected the Patriots to win this division. Up until about a week ago, no one thought this could be possible. And here we are. And if Buffalo loses this game, it's like you said, I don't know if it's not necessarily over for them, but they're not winning the AFC East. And a lot of questions are going to be asked of them. So I agree. Give me New England +3. I might even, depending on what the money line is when it's all said and done, I'm a big fan of that. And then in terms of the over-under, 44, come on. I mean, that's way too low. I know New England and Buffalo both have good defenses. And who knows, weather may be a factor, but Josh Allen is still really good. You still have Stephon Diggs. You still have a good run game. And you know what? New England's got a very good offense themselves as well. So I think the over-under, I think it's an easy over. We might see an over in the first half, to be honest. I'm, maybe thinking a little bit, selfishly, because I want to see a fantastic game, and I think we will. But I do think we see the over, and I like New England here a lot.
And money line is New England +105 right now. So
interesting.
But you know what? I had to look because I didn't want to misspeak. But yeah, these guys, the Patriots have 19 interceptions.
Yeah.
They got one cat, he's got 7 all by himself. So JC Jackson, these guys are just going to sit back there.
Yeah.
And this is going to be good. Going to be a good game.
Amen. I agree. But final thoughts, Raider Jim, as we close the book on our Week 13 podcast.
24 shopping days until Christmas.
23 though. I don't think you're going to be doing
true.
any Christmas shopping on Christmas.
And just think, when we do this in 3 weeks, it will be we'll be down to the last 4 or 5 games of the season.
Yeah,
just like that.
It's crazy. Nothing goes by faster than football season. You know, it's September, and the next thing you know, you blink and you're wrapping the presents, and the next thing you know, it's Super Bowl Sunday, and it's that long off season. But you know, it's still a lot to prove, a lot to find out over these next few weeks, because if the first few weeks or the first 12 weeks of the season have proven any of it, all of these games we just broke down, there's going to be 1 or 2 or probably 3 pretty big surprises. We've seen at least 1 or 2 big time surprises every single week. You know, the fun part is trying to find those, and that's where you make your profit. And, you know, hopefully we can turn the page. I know this past weekend for me was a little rough, but we get back into that, you know, get back on the horse this past weekend. Plenty of time to get back into the green here. But thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.